cannot accurately express in words how special it is for me to have Jane Hirshfield appear with us at Wednesday Night Poetry. She is such a mentor to my poetry soul, my creative practice, and my human practice. She says that in the silence around the words and in the white space around the words is where the wisdom lies. And the completion of a poem comes from the person reading it. And that's something that sets her apart from so many other poets that I've read. She leaves room and invites you in to read that poem and experience that world that she creates alongside her. And that is her grace, her generosity, her openness. And I'm just so honored that she's here tonight with us. And so thankful and filled with gratitude. I want to thank Agnes and Kevin for giving us this space and handing out masks and opening the door and making all of our drinks. So clap it up for Agnes and Kevin and Stevie and Ian behind the bar there. I would like to thank Mary Zunick from the Hot Springs Area Cultural Alliance as well for partnering with me for this event. This is Jane's official bio, and then I'm going to read a poem, okay? Jane Hirshfield is the author of 10 collections and is one of American poetry's central spokespersons for concerns of the biosphere. Hirshfield's honors include fellowships from the Guggenheim and Rockefeller Foundations, the Poetry Center Book Award, the California Book Award. You know, she probably doesn't even want me to read this. I could feel it. You know, because that's not what it's about. It's not, we all know. We all know. So maybe I could say it better in a poem. I sit with a master, for Jane Hirshfield. I sit with a master of poetic craft. Her essays, the 9 gates of her soul-piercing words under the blazing sun overhead. I lie down on the mahogany deck. It warms my back with ambient fire. I radiate and my ribcage heart opens like a cracked hymnal as I read. The book is surrounded in blue sky above and moving, billowing white clouds that swirl in a dance around this learning, this prayer for attentiveness, this call to concentration, the language of her words suggesting in every phrase. I live this way already, tuned to a higher frequency, afoot in both worlds. I tread the trails of stars while dipped in this humanness. Attentiveness, observation, attentiveness, observation, breath. All of my eyes are open. My cells divide into infinities. I taste this moment with all of my bodies, the book's slick cover and grainy pages, the summer morning's soft breeze, the billowing nimbus, her voice coming through ink, transcendence in the ability to stop time and become a part of every moving cell around me. The abundance of thanks that wells inside my body, knowing I can speak a language beside her that pulses in all things, knowing silence is its own music, knowing I have been trained to talk unashamed to flowers, to hear the woodpecker hollow out a song into pine, to move with the dragonfly alight on my page this very moment, landing divine on the dog-eared pyramid as if dipped in gold. The sun kaleidoscoping his wings with another planet's iridescence. Attentiveness, observation, attentiveness, observation, breath. All of my eyes are open. I try to catch all the images moving like salmon in a stream before me. Try to hold them, slippery and fleeting in an act of poetic preservation. But there is no stopping the passing of everything as it dances with everything. Suddenly, a hummingbird whirs over me, pauses, and pees on my forehead. Dare I call it nectar of the gods, sugar-sweet ambrosia, a baptism? Dare I call myself anointed? Dare I? My dear friends, it is my esteemed honor and humble privilege to welcome our special guest tonight, Jane Hirshfield.
Sorry, I need to put things down. There we go. And thank you all for masking. I want you to be able to hear me, so I'll take mine off. This has been extraordinary. This is an extraordinary community. The generosity that has brought you all together, the passion, the craft, the beauty. And I am a quiet poet, and each of you who's come up here and said you like my poems, I think, oh, thank goodness, because, I not only don't write clappers, I'm not sure I write snappers. My poems are really quiet, but it is, and I feel also, it's like, it feels a little rude to read for more than 4 minutes. So I'm really tempted to read like 1 or 2 short poems and go sit down again, because we are all in this together. This is what we do. So thank you. And Kai, where is Kai? Kai, oh, what a force of nature. As teacher, as community builder, as human being, as hummingbird. Okay, so it being National Poetry Month, I wanted to start with a poem. I do sometimes open my readings with one which is trying to remember and honor all the poets who most of us in this room will never hear of. Poets who write in places where there might be no access to publication at all. Poets who write in languages that might not be translated. Poets who write in a quiet room because they must write and no one may know their words, perhaps. And yet I am absolutely sure that the air we breathe and the world we live in is changed because of the words they have brought into being.
That was dramatic.
Thank you. Okay. That's louder, isn't it? Okay. Then I have to raise my. None of you will see me because I can't read through the mic, and unfortunately, I do not have my poems memorized. That was stupendous.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. We'll make it. The poet. And this is the universal she. This poem was written so long ago that they wasn't an option yet. So in the universal she, the poet. She is working now in a room not unlike this one, the one where I write or you read. Her table is covered with paper. The light of the lamp would be tempered by a shade where the bulb's single harshness might dissolve. But it is not. She has taken it off. Her poems, I will never know them, though they are the ones I most need. Even the alphabet she writes in, I cannot decipher. Her chair, let us imagine whether it is leather or canvas, vinyl or wicker. Let her have a chair, her shadeless lamp, the table. Let 1 or 2 she loves be in the next room. Let the door be closed, the sleeping ones healthy. Let her have time and silence, enough paper to make mistakes and go on. So I don't know how many of you saw the beautiful poster that Kai made for this event. It is the first time I have seen the cover of my next book out in public. The cover was just decided, quite recently. And the next book is going to be a new and selected poems, which means old poems, published poems, all the books, some new poems. So I thought, since the poster promised that I would read you old poems, recent poems, and some new poems. So this is the earliest of my poems I still feel a connection with. I wrote it in 1982, and it was written as I was devastated by the end of the first great love of my life. A few years later, it came out in a magazine. Someone came up to me a few months later and said, "Oh, I love your poem For What Binds Us. I had it read at my wedding." So you just never know what your poem's fate is going to be. And I hoped I covered my surprise and just said thank you. For what binds us. There are names for what binds us. Strong forces, weak forces. Look around, you can see them. The skin that forms in a half-empty cup, nails rusting into the places they join, joints dovetailed on their own weight. The way things stay so solidly wherever they've been set down. And gravity, scientists say, is weak. And see how the flesh grows back across a wound with a great vehemence, more strong than the simple, untested surface before. There's a name for it on horses when it comes back darker and raised. Proud flesh. As all flesh is proud of its wounds, wears them as honors given out after battle, small triumphs pinned to the chest. And when two people have loved each other, see how it is like a scar between their bodies. Stronger, darker, and proud. How the black cord makes of them a single fabric that nothing can tear or mend. You all are deeply reassuring. Thank you. This next poem takes its terrain from Greek mythology, but it's really best if you don't try to remember the myth that it is vaguely drawing upon. It's a poem. There was a long time when, over my period of time as a poet, a lot of ideas about what poetry is and what can be done and all of that have come through. And there was a while after I wrote this poem when everybody was saying you shouldn't ever read poems that drew on Greek mythology because it was elitist to do that. Sorry. My feeling is that the heritage of every trickster story and every myth and every tradition all over the world is all of ours to draw upon. And I don't want to throw out any wisdom because we need all the wisdom we can get. So anyhow, don't worry if you don't know the myth. Each moment, a white bull steps shining into the world. If the gods bring to you a strange and frightening creature, accept the gift as if it were one you had chosen. Say the accustomed prayers, oil the hooves well, caress the small ears with praise. Have the new halter of woven silver embedded with jewels. Spare no expense. Pay what is asked when a gift arrives from the sea. Treat it as you yourself would be treated, brought speechless and naked into the court of a king. And when the request finally comes, do not hesitate even an instant. Stroke the white throat, the heavy, trembling dewlaps you've come to believe were yours, and plunge in the knife. Not once did you enter the pasture without pause, without yourself trembling. That you came to love it, that was the gift. Let the envious gods take back what they can. So I've written a great many poems that are sort of dealing with the same part of experience that one is, which is the perennial struggle in any human life. How do you possibly say yes to what is frightening, to what is grievous, to what tears your roots from the soil? How do we not only navigate the difficult moments, but somehow manage to say yes to them? And that's a question you never get to answer permanently because the world keeps asking. So this is another one on that theme. The weighing. The heart's reasons seen clearly. Even the hardest will carry its whip marks and sadness and must be forgiven. As the drought-starved eland forgives the drought-starved lion who finally takes her, enters willingly then the life she cannot refuse, and is lion, is fed, and does not remember the other. So few grains of happiness measured against all the dark, and still the scales balance. The world asks of us only the strength we have, and we give it. Then it asks more, and we give it. So I have gone over the course of my life as a writer from one small smile per book to perhaps 6 or 7 little chuckles. And I thought I would give you a poem. You know, it's not a funny poem, but at least it's a poem of slightly lighter sense of things. It's for everyone in the room who's ever been adopted by a cat. A small-sized mystery. Leave a door open long enough, a cat will enter. Leave food, it will stay. Soon, on cold nights, you'll be saying, "Excuse me," if you want to get out of your chair. But one thing you'll never hear from a cat is, "Excuse me." Nor Einstein's famous theorem, nor the quality of mercy is not strained. In the dictionary of cat, mercy is missing. In this world where much is missing, a cat fills only a cat-sized hole. Yet your whole body turns toward it again and again, because it is there. Time has also changed its nature over my lifetime. It got a lot shorter. Everyone I know says the same thing. Of course, most people I know are my age. I don't know. Maybe if you're 7 years old, time is still eternal and abundant. A day is vast. A day is vast until noon. Then it's over. Yesterday's pond water braided, still wet in my hair. I don't know what time is. You can't ever find it, but you can lose it. So we're actually galloping forward through various books, but I think I will do one more of the poems from before the most recently published book, Ledger, then I'll give you some from Ledger, and then I'll try to find the newer poems in here and give you at least one of those. So This is a poem. Some poems are a bit sort of like, if you have a fever, take Tylenol or whatever. This is a poem for the moment when you find yourself muttering to yourself, there's nothing I can do, there's nothing I can do. A feeling which visits me fairly regularly. And so the poem has the modest title, Changing Everything. I was walking again in the woods. A yellow light was sifting all I saw. Willfully, with a cold heart, I took a stick, lifted it to the opposite side of the path. There, I said to myself, that's done now, brushing one hand against the other to clean them of the tiny fragments of bark. So you all remember, well, some of you remember, when the butterfly effect was figured out, and that poem came after that. So, a butterfly flaps its wings in Asia, and there's a big storm in Ethiopia, and you don't know. If you just move a stick when you feel totally impotent to change anything, maybe you've caused great compassion to enter the heart of a person who has never felt such a thing, many, many years later. So this is the opening poem of Ledger, the most recent book. I'm so sorry the beauty didn't arrive.
It arrived. You're here.
Oh, they're here. Oh, okay. Yeah, all my books got sold out of stock because I was on a podcast that has a lot of listeners, and of course immediately they vanished and no one could find them not too long ago. So that's nice. I wish they hadn't vanished, but better than they're loitering in the warehouse. So this is the opening poem to this book. I wrote it in 2014, and even though I had written about climate change and ecological things long before that. There's a poem called Global Warming that I wrote in 2004 that was apparently put into some appeals court case and brought by an environmental group in Oregon. Another great fate for a poem, besides a broken-hearted poem going to a wedding. To have your little poem about global warming show up in a court case. But when I wrote this poem, I had to live up to it afterwards. And it turned me into, I had been an activist when I was young. I'd fasted for Cambodia and gone to DC to protest the Vietnam War. But writing this poem made me more of a climate activist in a public way than I had been. And it is a poem trying desperately to make itself wrong. It wants, by having written it, by saying it, what it wants is to make itself something that if somebody reads it 75 or 100 years from now, if they stumble on it in a dusty file drawer, they will say, why was she so worried? We did all right. That's what this poem wants. So let them not say. Let them not say, we did not see it. We saw. Let them not say, we did not hear it. We heard. Let them not say, they did not taste it. We ate. We trembled. Let them not say, it was not spoken, not written. We spoke. We witnessed with voices and hands. Let them not say they did nothing. We did not enough. Let them say, as they must say something, a kerosene beauty, it burned. Let them say, we warmed ourselves by it, read by its light, praised, and it burned. So So that's the poem before the book starts. This is the first poem of when the book's first part gets going. It's called The Bowl, and you can think of any old kitchen bowl, any kind of soup bowl at all, but a little bit what's behind it is the bowl of the Takahatsu practice of Buddhist monks in Asia, where they go from household to household, and if their practice is not bringing enough to the community for somebody to put some food into the bowl, they do not have dinner that night. There's also a small reference, some of you will recognize, a Les Blank short film about Werner Herzog eating his shoe. The bowl. If meat is put into the bowl, meat is eaten. If rice is put into the bowl, it may be cooked. If a shoe is put into the bowl, the leather is chewed and chewed over, a sentence that cannot be taken in or forgotten. A day, if a day could feel, must feel like a bowl. Wars, loves, trucks, betrayals, kindness, it eats them. Then the next day comes, spotless and hungry. The bowl cannot be thrown away. It cannot be broken. It is calm, uneclipsable, rindless, and big though it seems, fits exactly in 2 human hands. Hands with 10 fingers, 54 bones, capacities strange to us, almost past measure. Scented as the curve of the bowl is, with cardamom, star anise, long pepper, cinnamon, hyssop. You are continuing to reassure me. Thank you. Everybody's insecure, everybody. So this next poem covers a lot of ground, and everybody always tells you when you introduce a poem, don't give it away, but I'm going to give it away because it's, on the page you can read it a few times. On the voice, it just gallops by. So it has in it, the International Space Station is in the title. It has the geomorphology of what creates ground in Florida. It has evolution and the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs. It has the Syrian civil war. It has terrorism. And it ends with a crisis which had been going on for years when I wrote this and is still going on just as it was now, the crisis of refugees in the Mediterranean. Day beginning with seeing the International Space Station and a full moon over the Gulf of Mexico and all its invisible fishes. None of this had to happen. Not Florida, not the ibis's beak, not water, not the horseshoe crab's empty body, and not the living starfish. Evolution might have turned left at the corner and gone down another street entirely. The asteroid might have missed. The seams of limestone need not have been susceptible to sand and mangroves. The radio might have found a different music. The hips of one man and the hips of another might have stood beside each other on a bus in Aleppo and recognized themselves as long-lost brothers. The key could have broken off in the lock, and the nail can refused its lid. I might have been the fish the brown pelican swallowed. You might have been the way the moon kept not setting, long after we thought it would, long after the sun was catching inside the low wave curls coming in at a certain angle. The light might not have been eaten again by its moving. If the unbearable were not weightless, we might yet buckle under the grief of what hasn't changed yet. Across the world, a man pulls a woman from the water from which the leapt-from overfilled boat has entirely vanished. From the water pulls one child, another. Both are living, and both will continue to live. This did not have to happen. No part of this had to happen. So just a few more, and I need to figure out which few more.
All of them.
Nah, we got other people to hear tonight. Okay, this is a shorter poem of the environment and causes and effects and what we do and what we don't do. This poem, the precipitating thing, and it happened. There was a full solar eclipse a few years ago in the Northeast, and I wasn't where it was complete, but I was somewhere where it was, 87% or something. And really strangely, on this beautiful, calm day, right before the eclipse happened, a huge pine tree just crashed to the ground. Well over 100 years old, just crashed. It was very strange. No wind, no rain. No wind, no rain. The tree just fell, as a piece of fruit does. But no, not fruit, not ripe, not fell. It broke. It shattered. One cone's addition of resinous cell sap. One small-bodied bird arriving to tap for a beetle. It shattered. What word, what act was it we thought did not matter? Wow. So, of the new poems in the new book, let's see what I'll give you.
I know y'all want to do it, right? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
What?
We get cues at Wednesday Night Poetry. We'll say, I wrote this morning, and
Oh.
everybody will go, new shit.
Oh, nah, these aren't that new. They're new to a book, but I didn't write them this way. I'm a terribly honest person. That's great. Okay, recent shit. So I have become something of a person who writes about and talks about out in the world the alliance between poetry and science. And when I was a kid, so I don't know how many of you noticed that 1982 poem I wrote you about the strong forces and the weak forces, those are terms from physics. I never even studied physics. But poets are magpies. We take our images from every vocabulary of the world. Those dovetail joints, I've never been a carpenter, but you take them because they're there and they mean something. And so one great source of poetry, not only for me, I suspect, the New York Times Tuesday Science page. And I'm not reading you the poem that I wrote after they figured out the science of why itch is itself. That was a couple of books ago. I'm not reading you, some others, but this one came from a New York Times science thing, which I happen to see online, and it's really beautiful. And if you love mosses, go find this because the images are fantastic. So anyhow, it's a story about mosses that live, and we all know mosses love moisture, but there are mosses that live in the Mojave Desert, and this was about them. So its title is Mosses, and the epigraph is a little bit from the article which came out on July 29th, 2020. So see, not that new. Although that was the article, it took me a long time to write the poem. I knew I would use it, but it took a long time to start it, and it took an even longer time to finish it. In the Mojave Desert, a translucent crystal offers bryophytes much-needed respite from the heat of the sun.
Wow.
For hypolithic mosses, it seems, 4% of daylight is right. They live, the headline says, by sheltering under a parasol of translucent quartz. The crystal scatters the light's ultraviolet, dilutes its heat, traps the night's condensed moisture to moss-sized rain. I think of these mosses and consider, perhaps we too are mosses, evolving to the parch of our self-made Mojaves, unable to bear the full brightness, the full seeing, to recognize fully the Amazon burning, the Arctic burning, the monarch's smoke-colored missing migration. An experiment not meant to last. And yet, we found shelter within it. We pondered our lives and the lives of others, thirsted, slept. To the implausible green of existence, for better, for worse, we offered our 4% portion of praises. For better, for worse, our 4% portion of comprehension. So this will be the last poem, and it's one page, but I had to reduce the font size to make it one page, just so you have some idea of how much longer before the rest of you get to start reading again. So I would like, I think I need the reading glasses for this one. Maybe. I would like my living to inhabit me the way rain, sun, and their wanting inhabit a fig or an apple. I would like to meet my life also in pieces, scattered. A conversation set down on a long hallway table, a disappointment pocketed inside a jacket, some long ago longing glimpsed, half recognized in the corner of a thrift store painting. To discover my happiness, walking first toward, then away from me, down a stairwell, on two strong legs, all its own. Also, the uncountable wheat stalks. How many times broken, beaten, sent between grindstones before entering the marriage of oven and bread. Let me find my life in that too, in my moments of clumsiness, solitude, in days of vertigo and hesitation, in the many year-ends that found me standing on top of a stovetop to take down a track light. In my nights asked, sometimes answered, questions. I would like to add to my life, while we are still living, a little salt and butter, one more slice of the edible apple, a teaspoon of jam from the long-simmered fig, to taste as if something tasted for the first time what we will have become then. Thank you.